Ready?
Yep.
Hello, everyone, and welcome once again to Outwit in Real Time. I'm Dr. Dennis Becker, and joining me from the road this time, I mean, literally from the road, she's driving, is my colleague and co-host, Robin Golinski. Robin, you with us?
Yes, and I think I just want to add that outwitinrealtime.com is our website. Outwitting the Manipulator is our podcast.
Oh, she's always ready with a clarification, as she calls them. Thank goodness for Robin. I
With
appreciate
a
it.
helpful suggestion. I am the queen of unsolicited correction.
Of course you are. That's one of the things we all like about you. And today,
Oh,
you're
I
going
don't
to
know
have
about
the
that, but
opportunity today to do a lot of that, I might say, because today, folks, we're going to be talking about something a little bit different. Well, first of all, we always talk about manipulation. What a wonderfully fun topic that is, right? Yeah, well, we're always talking about that in some way. And most of the way, of course, we are helping you learn how to protect yourself in real time as the manipulation is happening, which is why Robin and I wrote the book, and all the tactics and the techniques that you learn how to use while the manipulation is having. And here on the podcast, we have the opportunity to explore some of the things that we put in writing a little bit more, and sometimes a little bit differently, which is what we're going to do today. Today, we're talking about manipulation, of course, our favorite topic, and I know it must be yours for listening. But today, we're going to talk about it a little bit differently. We're not necessarily going to give you specific techniques to use for specific tactics that you may be experiencing. We are going to broaden the topic a little bit. And we want to talk a little bit about manipulation, which we all know is such a bad, negative, nefarious thing. But today, we're asking the question, is there anything positive about manipulation? Is there anything good from manipulation? In fact, the world is populated by about 7% of the population being identified as manipulators. Why are they here? Why are they in society? Why are they on Earth at all? 7% is a significant number when you talk about the world population. Why do we have
and since the beginning of time, it's always been. It's not like they haven't existed since
Yeah.
the beginning of time. We've had manipulators. Humans have been manipulators.
All kinds of evidence and stories about that, folks. And we know a lot of them, of course, and you know many of them. So we're bringing it up to date. And we're wondering, in this world today, given all of the manipulation we have going on around us, which we all see and are targets of, is there anything good about that? Is there anything that we, the manipulated people, benefit? Is there anything that society benefits by having manipulators in our life? Now, I know this is a stupid question in a way for many of you, because you're like, what are you kidding me, man? This guy, he's such a blah, blah, blah. We understand. We understand. But we also understand that in our podcasts, we want to help you explore all of the aspects of manipulation, and of course, of your manipulator, and more importantly, of how that is affecting you. We're here to help you protect yourself. So today is a little bit of a different look at manipulation and manipulators, and you're being manipulated. Is there anything good about that? So as we said, Robin
All
is
right.
on the road. So Robin,
Your introductions are so
jump in. You go ahead.
yeah.
We may have a little bit of
I'm like, can we
that,
get
folks,
going
but go.
already? All right. Well, so I just want to say that I have been the target of manipulation for, I want to say 45 years of my life. And Dennis has been a PhD in communication. He has had the experience of coaching manipulators, and he's very adapted. He understands manipulation, how it works, but he hasn't necessarily been a target the way I have. So today I'm posing the hypothesis that if 7% to 10% of the population falls in the basket of manipulator, and by manipulator we mean the hidden agenda manipulators. Obviously we all manipulate, we all persuade and we all manipulate. We manipulate the environment to, you know, for us to survive. But we're talking about, they've existed since the beginning of time, and they're in every single culture, in every single society. Then my hypothesis is they must serve a good purpose, because nothing in nature is wasted. Nothing is there for no reason. So then I started to think about, how have I benefited from being the target of a manipulator, both as a child with a mother who was very, very, very manipulative, and then choosing a spouse who was manipulative? Well, we're going to flip the tables here and have Dennis interview me about what are the gifts? What am I grateful for? Because I've really come through the other side of this. Obviously, I wouldn't have been able to write a book or even have this podcast if I didn't burst through the other side, which is where we'd like to bring everyone else in society with us who is still suffering. So to that, Dennis, I say, go for it.
Well, I think that last point that you made is something that's really significant here, and that is that we're doing this to help others who perhaps are not and cannot and feel they can never reach the stage that you have reached, Robin. And we're thankful for where you are, and who feel like it's a lost cause. Well, we understand how you feel, which is why we're doing this. And believe me, I've coached.
Totally understand. Yeah.
In the coaching that I've done with folks who are manipulators, and certainly those who have been manipulated, I understand the pain and the suffering and the disbelief that this can ever be cured, controlled. I understand where that comes from, which is part of the reason I'm in the world that I'm in. And so, Robin, I'm going to ask you some questions that I might have asked other people. You may or may not have the answers to them, but let's explore it a little bit.
I always have an answer. It may not be correct, but I will always give you, wherever my current state of mind is right now, I will give you that answer.
We've all learned that about you, Robin. So thank you for reminding us.
Go big or go home. That's what I say.
So I want to start with a big question, without being too specific to your life yet. The big question. I mean, I'm sure people who are listening to us right now are asking, what the heck are they talking about? What's possibly positive about manipulation? I mean, we're trying to look at this as, are there any positive things? And so from your perspective, without going into the specifics of your life yet, Robin, are you answering yes or no? There are positives to manipulation. Okay.
Yes. So when I say burst through the other side, I mean, instead of being resentful, angry, guilty, ashamed, all the things that I felt when it was revealed to me that I had been manipulated, I now feel grateful, proud of what I've endured, and really grateful for what I've learned about myself, about human dynamics, about effectiveness, about good relationships. I could not have learned those things without being the target of manipulation.
Well, now let me stop you right there, because there are people who feel, I'm sure, that they are in that state. They feel positive about their life and the way they're leading their life, and they have not gone through manipulative experiences such as you. How did those people get to where they are?
Well, when I say I could not have learned them any other way, that's specific to the type of personality I have. I think that it was a true gift for me. I think that, sure, you can go your whole life. You could be someone who goes your whole life never being the target of manipulation. However, there are things that you can learn from a manipulator that I don't know that you could learn any other way. And I don't want to make any strong declarative statements there because I haven't given it enough reflection, but there are some specific things you learn from being a target of manipulation that I don't know if you could learn them any other way. Now you could still go have a happy life and maybe not be challenged and just cakewalk through life. You know, some people live the very simple, happy lives and they just don't have any of that. So they don't need the challenge or the strength.
I doubt that there's anyone listening to us or who has never listened to us that has not been a target of manipulation. Now, I don't mean that necessarily in the individual concern with a person or a spouse or whatever that manipulate. I'm not talking about that. But there are, as parts of society, there are manipulators, manipulative attempts all around us in advertising, particularly. There,
Oh, right. Yes.
right?
Yeah, you're right. Everyone's a target.
So
Everyone's a
we're all
target. But
targets.
let's talk interpersonally for now, for
Okay.
this episode.
All right. I just
And
wanted to clarify.
interpersonally, I will tell you that I just actually thought of something as you were talking, Dennis. Resiliency. People talk a lot about resiliency. Resiliency is not something you can just acquire. You cannot read about it in a book. You cannot watch a TikTok video and acquire resiliency. The only way for you to get resiliency is to get knocked down and get back up.
Well,
Knocked
that can
down
happen
and get
now.
back
Let's
up.
let's not leave the global point for just a second. That can happen. You can get knocked down and get back up and be very resilient if you have been taken advantage of by a mortgage deal or a car deal, some sort of a project that you got into and it wasn't what you thought it was, and you come out and you say, "Man, what did I learn from that? I'll never do that again." So there is a possibility that people can learn from things other than the nefarious one-on-one interpersonal manipulation. Don't you agree with that?
No, that's Dennis. That's still nefarious manipulation when you get taken advantage of by an institution. But let's stay away from that. I'm talking about resiliency. If you look at resiliency in nature, you know, the plants that survive, the animals that survive, they develop resiliency. It's what makes that species stronger. And it can be mental or physical. You see people have been in horrific car accidents, and some curl up and die a slow death because they decide that usually their identities, and they don't. I find resiliency very tied to a malleable identity. That means, like, if your identity has taken root and you've decided that you are a professor at a university, that's your identity. Your whole life's constructed around it. It's how you view yourself. It's how you decided everyone views you. And then you get fired and you get discredited and everything's taken away from you. If you're very rooted in that, usually there's many people who can't come back from that. Then they start getting depressed. They maybe attempt suicide. They maybe have a heart attack or a stroke because they cannot imagine. It's a mindset, right? We talk about mindset all the time. They cannot imagine themselves as anything other than that professor. And then there are people who go, okay, that's not me. They didn't have deep roots in that identity. They say, okay, that identity is gone. Let me get a new identity. That to me is resiliency.
Of course.
It's redefining yourself. And I don't mean a new identity like, hey, I'm a girl, tomorrow I'm a man. I'm not talking about that.
No,
I'm
I
talking
understand.
about.
I get it. Okay, so we agree then that resiliency is a thing that you can have in your life without being, as you and I have written about and talk about all the time and researched about, a target of a manipulator who's after you all the time and gets you in every turn that you make. You can have resiliency and life after a traumatic event that may have been manipulated against you, or whatever. But you can have life after that. Okay.
Let's not even go as deep as trauma. Like, trauma is a word that's way overused. Let's use the word, challenged.
Okay, that's fine.
Difficult.
That's fine.
I'm so sick of people using that word.
You and I agree.
It's overused.
Then okay, I get that already. I get it. I agree.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah, sorry. It's
We do agree. You're so excited. Pay attention to driving.
Well, I am, but
right.
I'm halfway through my venti, my coffee. So
all right.
But I had another thought before
you. Wait a minute. Let me finish that one. Wait a minute. Hold on a second. You're talking as fast as you're driving, I think. Hold on.
I am.
I want to make the point that we do agree, and I want listeners and viewers to understand that we do agree that manipulation can happen on a much broader scale than just interpersonal, and that you can be either a target of that, or you can be resilient in that way. We agree about that, correct?
Yes, but can we please stick to interpersonal right now? Just stick with interpersonal.
Okay, now we're going. Hold on. Gee,
We're already,
my goodness.
okay.
Driving makes you much more aggressive. Listen to you. Driving makes you much more aggressive than you normally are. Heavens, the Murgatroyd. Okay,
If
so
I can
listen,
get this
we agree.
episode without swearing, it'll be a miracle.
Lord, Lordy, Lordy. Okay,
No, I
now let's
won't. That's
move to
okay.
interpersonal. That's where I'm trying to go. If you give me a chance to talk. All right, we're moving to interpersonal manipulation. So now we need to be able to talk about, and thank you for being able to talk about, how your experiences of being a target of manipulation in several different ways over several different years has made a difference for you, and you may be able to talk about the positive differences that it has made for you. So feel free now to go ahead and to say how manipulation in your life you see as a benefit to you.
Okay, first I want to start with, I'm actually being inductive, Dennis. You'll be amazed. First I want to start with the general idea, thought of competency breeding confidence. So people like to throw around the word confidence all the time. And I wish I had more confidence. And I help me get confidence. And they think they're just going to get confidence and then they'll have confidence. Well, what gives you confidence is competence. And what gives you confidence is actually doing, going through something, learning something, doing something. So there's a lot of false confidence in our world from people who sit in front of a video on YouTube and watch somebody change a sewer drain pipe or whatever, and they think I can do that because they watch this simplistic video and they think that's not real competence and it's not real confidence, because if you were truly put to the test, you'd find out how incompetent you are. So that's my premise, is that I know for sure is that competence gives confidence, and you get confidence when you are tested, and nobody tests every aspect of your thinking and your being more than a manipulator. A manipulator puts you through a hazing like none other. And we talk a lot about compliance, how you can comply with that manipulation, it gets worse. Okay, so get out of that, back to how have I benefited? I realized that through the manipulation I received, and mind you, let's go back, manipulation when you're a young person, when you're learning about the world at the same time as you're being manipulated, is incredibly confusing. So to sort out, the attachment to your mother, and then to discover and have to separate, okay, this mother does not love me unconditionally. This mother is competitive with me. This mother is threatened if I take any limelight away from her. It takes a long time to sort that out. It's little by little by little, but it's being curious and open-minded. And then there's the shock and not wanting to accept it. Just even with mountains of evidence, it's very hard to accept it because it goes against nature. It's unnatural. And so then you need other sources of information to say, could this possibly be true? So you run it up against other people. I remember sitting in high school in a psychology class in high school, and the teacher was telling us about a narcissistic personality disorder. And I felt like a chill go down my spine, and I turned red. And I am not somebody who's easily embarrassed, because public humiliation was a tactic my mother used on me regularly, and I realized it gave her power. So I decided not to be embarrassed. So I'm not easily embarrassed. Anyway, in class, I felt like all eyes were on me, and I felt like a secret was just revealed. And he described my mother to a T. And I was rattled because it was as if he knew her. And I actually didn't go into the logos part of my brain. The logos part of my brain would have said, he does not know your mother, Robin. He's never met your mother. And this is written in your textbook. I didn't get to the logos part of my brain. I was only in that emotional part of my brain. I got up after class and I walked up to him and I said, do you know my mother? And he said, I don't think so. And I gave him my mother's name, and I go, I mean, that was that dumb. Like, I don't normally do dumb things like that, but that's how flummoxed I was. And he said, why are you asking me if I know your mother? And I said, because you just described my mother perfectly. And I was just blasted. I couldn't, I sorted out. And
well, from that point on, Robin,
from
that point on, were you able to better deal with the tactics your mother had been using on you because you had, that was brought to your attention in that classroom moment?
Well, you're talking about a 15, 16-year-old who's, you know, trying to figure out the coming of age. You're trying to figure out your own body, your own thoughts. Who are you? And you've been told that you don't matter. You only matter in that it's in service to your mother, and that's how you've been raised. So no, I would say it was just another baby step. And that's why this process, there's no switch to flip. There's no TikTok video that's going to fix this for you. You have to you have to decide that you deserve and are worthy of a happy life. You have to realize you have a human right for happiness. And not only that, I've said this before, you're responsible for your own happiness. You're responsible for it. Nobody ever told me that. I had to figure this all out the hard way. It's very difficult to tease all this out. Very, very long process. But there are what do you call those? I'm on the road right now too. These mile markers, right? These moments where I took a bigger step forward in sorting things out. That was a helpful big step. But no, it still was very, 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 very difficult because I needed my mother at 16 years old. And she knew I needed her, but she just gave me drips and drabs when it suited her to get something from me. So it's hard to, you know, I don't want to go into great detail about it. People who've experienced this know exactly what I'm talking about. So it's very conditioned to think that, I mean, here's the bottom line. I was extremely conditioned to think I wasn't worthy of love. I had to earn it through service. And the minute I stopped being useful to someone or in service to someone, I, as a human, was worthless. Now, nothing in life is all bad or all good. The good part about that is I busted my ass to work hard and be good and do things for people, and became very competent at that, reading people and helping people. The bad part about that is you lose yourself in that process.
Well, did you feel that, do you feel, or when did you feel that you had kind of turned the corner or gotten the agreement that you didn't have to be the target any longer, and you could begin to be of service to people for purposes of love and all other things other than manipulation? What turned that corner for you? When did you know you didn't have to be a target any longer, and how did you know it?
I don't think there was any one moment. So I will describe the break from my mother, but then I took another leap into a different relationship in which I repeated the pattern. But the break from my mother is a huge moment. Huge moment was when I was about 13. She took me to a therapist. And this is where I want to harken back to another episode we had about the bystanders. Those of you who are witnessing manipulation of another, speaking up. Okay, so my mother felt like she couldn't control me. She was getting more and more frustrated about her lack of control over me. Well, at 13, I pretty much was starting to sort out that this was a power thing and I wasn't going to give her any power. And, you know, you're fueled by those teenage hormones and you're fired up to break free. So I was in her face telling her what's the what. And when she tried to hit me, I told her I'd call DSS. And I was a researcher, so I knew all my rights. I was a very difficult person for her to control. So that was in my benefit. But she decided that she was going to take me to a therapist who's going to tell me that she was the mother and I had to listen to her and do what she said, no matter what. I couldn't question her. So said this in front of the therapist and say, you're going to find out that I'm the mother and that I know that you have to do what I say and blah, 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 blah. And I went kicking and screaming. I didn't want to go to the therapist. And I, as at 13, thought, oh my God, this means I'm crazy. This means something's wrong with me. Well, this woman was amazing. I had 1 hour with her. She listened to me, which no one ever listened to me. And I was extremely articulate. And she validated what I was feeling. And I walked out of there with a smile on my face. And I think my mom was pissed off about that. So she took me back a second time. And the therapist said to me in the second session, she said, I'm not going to be able to see you anymore. And I said, I started to cry really hard. And I said, why? I said, I actually really want to come. And she goes, I'm going to tell you something right now that will get me fired if you disclose it to anyone. She said, I need to know that you will keep this in confidence. And it was so profound. And I said, I promise I won't tell anyone. She goes, your mother is crazy and you are not. And you only have to bide your time for 5 years and you could do whatever you want. And
wow. So there's a turn in the corner. There's a turn.
And that was a huge turn. Sure. My mother wouldn't even let me have a second session with her because my mother could see that this woman, that I was happy and I wanted to go back, and that pissed her off. So she cut me off, but this woman could see what was going on, and she was like, this is my last hurrah with this girl, and I could see that she's suffering, and she gave me that, and oh my God, Dennis, that was like filling my tank up with rocket fuel.
All right, so that worked for you. That worked for you.
That worked for me.
And we're happy for you. Now, we don't have a whole lot of time left in our visit with our folks today. So let's turn to the question of that we started with. Is there any positive things about manipulation? Why do we have so many manipulators? Is there anything positive about being manipulated? Anything about that?
Yes. Manipulators, if you allow them to be your teachers, they will teach you how to advocate for yourself, because they will test the very limits of what you thought you would tolerate as a human being. They will push and push and push the boundaries, whether they're physical or mental or emotional. They will exploit your very boundaries and put you in positions where you are tested as to who are you. And when they say, like, what kind of person are you? Would you who are you when no one's looking? Who are you at your core? What is your character? What do you stand for? The manipulator will test all the limits of that. And they will try to rationalize and put you on a slippery slope and have you do things that are counter to what you believe is right, what you want to do. And you'll find yourself painted into a corner where you feel like you have no choice, but you always have a choice. And when you stand up, you got one or two options, right? When they paint you into a corner, you either say, oh my God, I really don't have any choice. I have to sign this loan, or he's going to go to jail because, he can't make payroll, or I have no choice. I have to lie for my mother. If I don't, she's going to go to jail. So I have to lie, Oh, you do that. You stand up to them or you don't. If you don't, you get stronger. You suffer in the short term because their rage and their backlash is real, but you still have the comfort of yourself, the strength in yourself of knowing I did the right thing, even though I'm getting all this backlash. I know I did the right thing. Or you comply with them, and you might as well sign up for a slow drip of poison, because you have now eroded your own belief in yourself. By choosing to comply with the manipulation, you start to take a poison in that you go, you can't trust your own self. You can't believe in your own self. You compromised what you thought to be good and right, which is a huge betrayal to yourself. And they teach you that. If you let them, they teach you that. And if you reflect and you think about it, And then each time you're faced with those choices, you say, I choose backlash. I choose backlash because by choosing backlash, I choose my own integrity, my own strength of self. And then it compounds and you get stronger and stronger. And then that's it. I'll stop there.
So I think what you're saying, you correct me if I'm wrong, of course, but I think what you're saying is that because you always have a choice, it's up to you to choose to make the choice that's either going to comply or it's going to go in a different direction. Now, this is where I'm struggling.
Correct.
This is where I think a lot of our listeners are struggling. I don't think I wouldn't disagree with you about any of that. The question now comes, how do I do
thank
that?
goodness.
How do I do that? How do I make myself stronger in the end by facing this difficulty, this challenge, because I know I'm going to get backlash? What do I do in this moment? This is where I think, if I may step in for a second now, this is where I think that the work that you and I have been doing is intended to be helpful to people. When you are feeling that I want to do what Robin says, she's right about this. How do I begin? That's where what we're doing, I think, comes into being.
If you've never done it, you start small with little things like my boss that puts his hand around my shoulder. I say, I get uncomfortable when you put your hand on my shoulder.
Yeah.
Would you please refrain from touching me?
Yeah, and as we've suggested, sometimes it's a word. All you need is a word or a gesture of your own or a facial expression.
Or a gesture. Yes, a gesture.
Yeah. And that starts it for you. That's where, when you're feeling you're in the corner, sometimes all you need is a word or a facial expression or a sentence that will cause your manipulator to think, whoa, wait a minute. If they pause like that,
allies.
There will be backlash. We know that. But that's the beginning of your developing a certain amount of, here's what Robin used before, of competence. What kind of competence? Competence in being